Yes, now it's open. Shall I go back to you?
Yeah. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Insights Festival show. Apologies for that little technical glitch. I hope that you are doing well. We are really pleased that the next segment that we're going to be introducing in the Insights Festival show is Dr. Andrea Jelinek, who's our little VIP guest that we're bringing to the festival show. Dr. Andrea Jelinek is the chair of the European Data Protection Board, which is the European network of national data protection authorities. When we talk about insights, when we talk about consumer insights, one of the base ingredients of insights generation is, of course, people's information, people's opinions, people's thoughts. Those are the types of things which make insights so special. But as a result of that, the Esomar community has always placed a great deal of importance around ethics, around responsible data collection and responsible data use. So we thought we would check in with Dr. Andrea Jelinek to understand kind of how COVID-19 has impacted data protection and use, and also to understand a little bit kind of what she's expecting to be focusing on for the next coming up. I hope you enjoyed this segment. Be aware that we've been having some technical issues with regards to the line, so it might be possible that the video at certain moments looks a little bit weird. Unfortunately, that's normal. That's just the reality of doing live shows, is that sometimes we can't control the internet. So you might have to deal with that. But we hope that you still are able to get a lot of insights from that little interview with Dr. Andrea Jelinek. I'm really pleased we were able to bring this to you, and enjoy this segment. Welcome back to the Insights Festival show. We are absolutely delighted to have all of you watching today, and hopefully you found the previous segments interesting and the segments to come even more interesting. I want to say a huge word of thanks to our sponsor, NetQuest, who's made this possible. And this session is going to be a bit different from the others because we have invited a very special guest, Dr. Andrea Jelinek, who is chair of the European Data Protection Board, to come and talk to us today. The reason why I wanted to invite Dr. Andrea Jelinek to this show is because the insights community uses a lot of personal data in order to generate their insights. People, they ask their opinions, they observe how people use products and services, and all of that, of course, involves a lot of personal data processing. And that was why we thought it'd be quite interesting to talk to Dr. Andrea Jelinek, to talk a little bit about kind of where data protection regulation was heading, to understand how COVID-19 has impacted things at the European Data Protection Board, which is one of the leading data protection authorities around the world. And so we just wanted to check in with her and see kind of how things are going, what are the trends, what are the challenges, and what is her advice for companies who are still trying to comply with laws like the General Data Protection Regulation in Europe. So please allow me to say a huge warm welcome to Dr. Andrea Jelinek. Welcome to the show, Andrea. It's great to have you here.
Very good.
Thanks for having invited me to be part of the show. I'm very rarely invited to shows. Normally or at conferences, but at festivals and shows, I'm invited very rarely. So I'm really happy to join you today. Thanks for the invitation.
It's great to have you here, and thank you so much again for your time. I guess we have a limited amount of time, so let's just jump right in. And I wanted to kind of ask you first. We know, or many of us might know, that the General Data Protection Regulation is now 2 years old. Your work has been instrumental in bringing the GDPR to life. Many data protection authorities, EDPB, of course, are hard at work trying to respond to consumer complaints and queries. And I just wanted to check in with you and see how has COVID-19 kind of changed your priorities, or are you still working on the same dossiers as before?
As COVID-19 changed quite a lot, it also changed quite a lot of our work. We've been very busy over the past few months, if possible, even busier than usual, because it has been added to our schedule as an immediate result of the COVID-19 outbreak. Institution as EDPB to speak out on the implications for data protection of the data that is being gathered and shared in the fight against COVID-19. We published a statement immediately already in March, followed by a more in-depth statement a few days later, carried by all the EEA supervisory authorities. Next, the board was consulted by the European Commission on draft guidance on apps supporting the fight against the COVID-19 pandemic. In addition, we have decided on our own initiative to develop guidance on different aspects of data use in the context of COVID-19. I'm sure you know these documents, including geolocation and tracing tools and the processing of health data for scientific purposes. We see of our plenary meetings from once a month to once or even twice a week in the first few months of the pandemic to deal with this additional and urgent work. This means after the plenary was just before the plenary and again and again. And it was a huge amount of work we did together, all the colleagues. And we would take it serious. We are already with our plenaries, with the amount of our plenaries in the year 2022.
It's a crazy amount of work that you've had to face, and it's amazing that you're able to digest all of it in essence. I wanted to kind of pick your brain with regards actually to contact tracing a little bit, because we know that there's a lot of consumer concern about that. Indeed, private companies are being asked to participate in that. Are you confident that the contact tracing apps being developed in Europe, but also elsewhere in the world, are now fit for purpose? Or would you say there is still a concern here between, on the one hand, the public concerns, and on the other hand, data protection and data privacy concerns?
Data privacy, data protection doesn't hinder the fight of COVID-19 against COVID-19. We already issued this in our statements, but you have to look into what you're doing and how you're doing it. And the best is always, and in much apps, it's not necessary to have a geolocation of the people, because they just have to know if you met somebody, but not who, and not where, but just that. And so most of these tracing apps are working with Bluetooth system, and so it is the most secure. And also we issued in our guidance that we appreciate if the storage is decentralized, but we didn't exclude the centralized systems. But it's also always up to the controller to be responsible. But I think, and this has to be pointed out, every tracing app, everything can just support the fight against COVID-19. The real fight fought by the doctors and by the nurses and by all of us, because we have to have the rules regarding social distances, not meeting too many, wearing our masks when they're not forced to it. So I think it's a responsibility for all of us, and it's not possible only to rely on the tracing apps. It's just a question of responsibility of all the citizens.
Absolutely understood. You mentioned a word which I think is a big buzzword, or at least is still something even 2 years after GDPR has been adopted, which still creates a bit of confusion, which is the... Go ahead, Andrea, you wanted to say something.
The line was really bad at the beginning of your question, so I didn't get it.
Yeah. I was gonna segue and suggest that so you mentioned a very important buzzword with regards to you in your answer, which was kind of the topic of controller. And I know that even though GDPR is 2 years down the line, there is still kind of confusion with regards to controller versus processor and what, who is responsible for what. And I just wanted to see, has the European Data Protection Board been looking at this topic? And have you been doing any work to try to clarify things for people who might still be confused by who is a controller, who is a processor, and what their roles and responsibilities are within GDPR?
We already did and already do and do it still, because sometimes things are moving targets, but we already gave guidance and we will give guidance in the future too. But most of them, if they are controller or if they are processor, they really know, because they know their duties, and so in most of the cases it's not the problem. If some companies are playing with the roles of processors, if they change the role very quickly, so it's interesting. It's interesting, but most of the companies and most of the controllers and processors know what they are.
Fantastic. And I wanted to segue into something a bit different, which is to understand that, of course, COVID-19 has kind of shaped and changed a lot of the priorities. But my understanding is also that the European Data Protection Board is working on some new dossiers, some which were perhaps not created by the EDPB. For example, a Schrems II decision, which, of course, puts into huge question what should European companies and American companies do with one another. I'd be curious, has the EDPB done anything on the Schrems II decision? And what would be your advice to companies with regards to this?
First of all, the EDPB already has done quite a lot on the Schrems II decisions since July 16th. I issued on the same day as chair of the board a statement. On the next day, on the 17th, the plenary already issued a statement regarding Schrems II, that for sure we're welcoming this decision of the European Court of Justice, because also the board already addressed concerns during the past years regarding the decision, and the court decided to go in the same direction. But what's important, we already issued a FAQ document already at the end of July. I think it was on the 23rd or 24th. Which you can read on the website of the European Data Protection Board. Like all the other issues, we already published other topics. You can find everything. And in addition, at our last plenary on September the 2nd, we established 2 task forces regarding Schrems for additional guidance. So we're the task force, one on the additional guidance. This task force is composed by different, not only different people, but people from different areas, from technical transfer, from cooperation sector. They form this task force, and there is another task force dealing with the 101 complaints NOYB filed during the last month regarding the transfer of European controllers to the US under Google and Facebook. And I can tell this not only because we established this task force, also because Max Schrems and the NOYB published also on their website. So we're doing quite a lot. And our next plenary session will take place on Monday. And there we will speak about the next steps. But there are no quick fix solutions that immediately. And as far as I know, the Commission and the US already started negotiating maybe something not like a Privacy Shield 3, but to an agreement, hopefully to be committed and to be very, very not close, but in accordance with the judgment of the European Court of Justice. And if the negotiations will be ended, then the European Data Protection Board has the opportunity to on that and the Commission. And we are in close contact with the Commission. But you mustn't forget, addressed at first that they have to look into their processings, into their transfers, and give additional safeguards. It's not only a question regarding EU and US, it's a question towards every third country where there's no adequacy decision.
And that's a really important point with regards to indeed kind of for organizations which are working in a global environment. I'd be quite interested kind of perspective. Of course, we're talking here with the European Data Protection Board, but would you say kind of worldwide, are the trends in terms of data protection and privacy evolving in the right way? Would you say, is Europe creating an influencing role still, or would you say things have evolved at the global level?
As far as I was invited to join many conferences and many conversations and many hearings on the whole globe. Still convinced that Europe sets the pace and that many countries are not only working close together, but are trying to get the same equivalent protection for the data. Because you have to follow the rules of the GDPR if you want to make business in Europe. And so many countries are also changing their legal basis for data protection. You just have to take Japan. We have a mutual adequacy decision which works, and there are negotiations here and with other countries the Commission is doing, and I think it's a big success of the European data protection of the GDPR that these negotiations take place, and even in Brazil, a new data protection law entered into force. And I hope for global alignment, and I'm talking like that because sharing the same values in democracies also has to do with sharing values regarding your fundamental rights. And the fundamental right of privacy and data protection is a core issue, not only in Europe. It would make it easier for everyone.
We absolutely.
If we have, in general, one set of rules.
I was just saying, yeah, absolutely. We concur about the importance of global alignment. And it's reassuring to hear it from you.
Okay.
I wanted to ask you one final question before you potentially have to go, and I think that's more a question for our members and an organization which are working in the insights sector, who of course are collecting lots of personal data, and just wanted to kind of hear from you, kind of in terms of the EDPB, what are the kinds of things that you're still expecting or that you're still seeing businesses getting wrong? Kind of what are your top tips for them to make sure that they keep on the right track and that they keep complying to GDPR and that they keep complying to these principles on data protection and privacy, which we're still in the process of spreading worldwide?
the European Data Protection Board, we acknowledge that the implementation of the GDPR has been for some is still challenging, especially for small actors, most notably SMEs. The supervisory authorities, we have been developing several tools to support SMEs in complying with the GDPR. A list of these tools was included also in the EDPB contribution of the GDPR, which you can also find on the website of the EDPB. You also find the evaluation of each and every supervisory authority of all the 30 EEA countries, so you have a really broad overview. And in order to keep on addressing the specific needs of SMEs, we are aware of the importance of developing further tools to help them implement appropriately the GDPR, and we fully understand their obligations in this field. And together with our ongoing work on guidelines, the EDPB is committed to facilitating the development of these further tools in order to further alleviate the administrative burden of SMEs and other actors. In any case, the risk-based approach noted by the legislator in the text should be always kept in mind, as risks for data depend on the size of the controllers. But I'm sure you know this. But it always have to repeat it to keep this in mind. And in general, companies, even small companies, know what they have to do it right in a correct way. Sometimes they are not quite sure, but if you're not quite sure, please take the safer way and not the most risky way, because the riskier way is also risky for your company. And really important is the cooperation with the national supervisory authority.
In terms of that relationship with national supervising authorities,
important.
A question with regards to that, in terms of the relationship, would you say that, I know that certain data protection authorities have tried quite hard to make themselves approachable by small companies. Are you saying that the European Data Protection Board and other data protection authorities will also be encouraging that more and more, to really suggest a closer relationship, a more open approach to discussing issues which you might have? So our members should be reaching out if they have any kind of questions to you.
The point is the supervisory authorities are the regulators and not the lawyers of the company. Giving advice when it is possible, but in general we are the regulators, and everyone has his or her role. And if we would do the work of the lawyers, they wouldn't be happy to. So we won't. And we don't do the work of the lawyers of the companies. We stand eager to support how it is written in the GDPR. But you have to know that you're the controller and that you're responsible for what you're processing and what you're transferring. That's the game.
Very clear. And I think it highlights the
national supervisory authorities, and as EDPB, where it is in it highlights the importance.
No, go ahead. I was going to say that it highlights really the importance of organizations taking responsibility when they're collecting personal data.
Yes, that's the point.
Perfect. Andrea, I see that the time is ticking by. Is there kind of like a final? The question. So my kind of final question for you is kind of, if you're looking forward, what would be your one piece of advice in terms of priorities that for compliance programs moving forward? Kind of, is there something kind of emerging from your enforcement action that you're saying this is a recurring theme that companies should really be looking out for, because this is clearly a stumbling block which can be easily addressed, but actually it seems many companies still are struggling with?
I think one of the issues many companies are struggling with is the internal communication between the lawyers and the technology department, because if they speak more, if they communicate more from the beginning on, and take into account what the DPO is saying, taking into account what the lawyers are saying, they will be compliant with the GDPR if they work together without neglecting technological advantage. I think this is quite important. At first stage, if you start to develop new issues, speak with your lawyers. They don't hinder you, they support you in making it GDPR.
That's very clear. Thank you so much, Andrea, because I think that's indeed an important point to say the importance that data protection, data privacy shouldn't be seen as a hindrance to business innovation, that it should still be seen as a way to ensure that the business operations are sticking on the right path. But at the same time, of course, the idea of GDPR was never to stop businesses from flourishing in Europe or indeed elsewhere in the world. Perfect. Thank you so much, Andrea, for your time. I think, unfortunately, we've run out of time for this session, this segment. It's been amazing to have you here in the show. I wanted to thank those of you watching, and I hope that you found this chat with Dr. Andrea Jelinek interesting and insightful. I think we've received a lot of advice from Dr. Jelinek about what we have to do, what we have to focus on, the importance of remaining close to the GDPR risk-based approach and those types of things. Dr. Jelinek, is there any final word that you wish to say before we break off? In any case, a huge thanks for your presence here today.
Thanks for having invited me and that I was part of the show. And I think together we have an interesting journey in the evolution of the fundamental right of data protection. Thanks to all of you.
Thank you, everyone, for watching. I hope that you have enjoyed all of these insights, and be aware, of course, that there's a lot more insights being shared in the context of the Insights Festival taking place from the 14th to the 17th of September. If you're still interested in getting all of these insights, you can still register and attend the sessions which are taking place online. There's lots of insights to be discovered at the festival, lots of parties, things like yoga sessions. So it's a really great opportunity to just get involved, get connected to the Insights community and the insights that they are generating. Thank you very much for your attention. A huge thanks again to NetQuest for sponsoring this segment. We look forward to seeing you again in the next segments, where we're going to be continuing our world tour of the state of the world according to Insights. Dr. Jelinek, a huge thanks again for being here, and see you soon. Welcome back to the Insights Festival show. I hope that you enjoyed that little segment with Dr. Andrea Jelinek. I apologize again for the technical issues which we faced with regards to that particular connection, but I hope that you were able to get the most essential part of that presentation. If you find this content interesting, or if you want to know more about what we're doing with regards to data protection, data privacy, please do leave your comments on YouTube, on Facebook, send us an email. We'll be sure to bring back more of this kind of content, because we're very interested to hear if you find it interesting, and if you do, then we are very delighted to bring you more of that kind of content. We're going to go offline for the next hour and a half, and then we're going to come back, and we have more of the festival show programming planned for you. So do tune in to get more insights, state of the world according to Insights. It's a great session. So we're going to be going offline for an hour and a half. For those of you who are attending the festival, you can still participate in the many fringe sessions which are taking place right now. I've been watching some of the team session, and the conversation is flowing. So do join those sessions, do get connected with other festival goers. Let's make those human connections in a digital way, but hopefully we can still enjoy those connections. So make them happen. Come join the fringe, and see you in an hour and a half.